Jacob learned that Laban's sons were talking behind his back. Jacob has used our father's wealth to make himself rich at our father's expense. At the same time, Jacob noticed that Laban had changed toward him. He wasn't treating him the same. That's when God said to Jacob, "Go back home where you were born. I'll go with you." So Jacob sent word for Rachel and Leah to meet him out in the field where his flocks were. He said, "I notice that your father has changed toward me, he doesn't treat me the same as before. But the God of my father hasn't changed, he's still with me. You know how hard I've worked for your father. Still, your father has cheated me over and over, changing my wages time and again. But God never let him really hurt me. If he said, 'Your wages will consist of speckled animals,' the whole flock would start having speckled lambs and kids. And if he said, 'From now on your wages will be streaked animals,' the whole flock would have streaked ones. Over and over God used your father's livestock to reward me. Once, while the flocks were mating, I had a dream and saw the billy goats, all of them streaked, speckled, and mottled, mounting their mates. In the dream an angel of God called out to me, 'Jacob.' I said, 'Yes.' He said, 'Watch closely. Notice that all the goats in the flock that are mating are streaked, speckled, and mottled. I know what Laban's been doing to you. I'm the God of Bethel where you consecrated a pillar and made a vow to me. Now be on your way, get out of this place, go home to your birthplace.' Rachel and Leah said, 'Has he treated us any better? Aren't we treated worse than outsiders? All he wanted was the money he got from selling us, and he's spent all that. Any wealth that God has seen fit to return to us from our father is justly ours and our children's. Go ahead. Do what God told you.' Jacob did it. He put his children and his wives on camels and gathered all his livestock and everything he had gotten, everything acquired in Paddan Aram, to go back home to his father Isaac in the land of Canaan. Laban was off shearing sheep. Rachel stole her father's household gods. And Jacob had concealed his plans so well that Laban the Aramean had no idea what was going on, he was totally in the dark. Jacob got away with everything he had and was soon across the Euphrates headed for the hill country of Gilead. 3 days later, Laban got the news, Jacob's run off. Laban rounded up his relatives and chased after him. 7 days later they caught up with him in the hill country of Gilead. That night God came to Laban the Aramean in a dream and said, "Be careful what you do to Jacob, whether good or bad." When Laban reached him, Jacob's tents were pitched in the Gilead mountains, Laban pitched his tents there, too. "What do you mean," said Laban, "by keeping me in the dark and sneaking off, hauling my daughters off like prisoners of war? Why did you run off like a thief in the night? Why didn't you tell me? Why, I would have sent you off with a great celebration, music, timbrels, flutes. But you wouldn't permit me so much as a kiss for my daughters and grandchildren. It was a stupid thing for you to do. If I had a mind to, I could destroy you right now, but the God of your father spoke to me last night, 'Be careful what you do to Jacob, whether good or bad.' I understand. You left because you were homesick. But why did you steal my household gods?" Jacob answered Laban, "I was afraid. I thought you would take your daughters away from me by brute force. But as far as your gods are concerned, if you find that anybody here has them, that person dies. With all of us watching, look around. If you find anything here that belongs to you, take it." Jacob didn't know that Rachel had stolen the gods. Laban went through Jacob's tent, Leah's tent, and the tents of the 2 maids but didn't find them. He went from Leah's tent to Rachel's. But Rachel had taken the household gods, put them inside a camel cushion, and was sitting on them. When Laban had gone through the tent, searching high and low without finding a thing, Rachel said to her father, "Don't think I'm being disrespectful, my master, that I can't stand before you, but I'm having my period." So even though he turned the place upside down in his search, he didn't find the household gods. Now it was Jacob's turn to get angry. He lit into Laban, "So what's my crime? What wrong have I done you that you badger me like this? You've ransacked the place. Have you turned up a single thing that's yours? Let's see it, display the evidence. Our 2 families can be the jury and decide between us. In the 20 years I've worked for you, ewes and she-goats never miscarried. I never feasted on the rams from your flock. I never brought you a torn carcass killed by wild animals but that I paid for it out of my own pocket. Actually, you made me pay whether it was my fault or not. I was out in all kinds of weather, from torrid heat to freezing cold, putting in many a sleepless night. For 20 years I've done this, I slaved away 14 years for your 2 daughters and another 6 years for your flock, and you changed my wages 10 times. If the God of my father, the God of Abraham and the fear of Isaac, had not stuck with me, you would have sent me off penniless. But God saw the fix I was in and how hard I had worked, and last night rendered his verdict. Laban defended himself, the daughters are my daughters, the children are my children, the flock is my flock, everything you see is mine. But what can I do about my daughters or for the children they've had? So let's settle things between us, make a covenant, God will be the witness between us. Jacob took a stone and set it upright as a pillar. Jacob called his family around, get stones. They gathered stones and heaped them up and then ate there beside the pile of stones. Laban named it in Aramaic, Yegar-Sahadatha, witness monument. Jacob echoed the naming in Hebrew, Gilead, witness monument. Laban said, this monument of stones will be a witness, beginning now, between you and me. That's why it is called Gilead, witness monument. It is also called Mizpah, watchtower, because Laban said, God keep watch between you and me when we are out of each other's sight. If you mistreat my daughters or take other wives when there's no one around to see you, God will see you and stand witness between us. Laban continued to Jacob, this monument of stones and the stone pillar that I have set up is a witness. A witness that I won't cross this line to hurt you and you won't cross this line to hurt me. The God of Abraham and the God of Nahor, the God of their ancestor, will keep things straight between us. Jacob promised, swearing by the fear, the God of his father Isaac. Then Jacob offered a sacrifice on the mountain and worshipped, calling in all his family members to the meal. They ate and slept that night on the mountain. Laban got up early the next morning, kissed his grandchildren and his daughters, blessed them, and then set off for home. And Jacob went his way. Angels of God met him. When Jacob saw them he said, oh, God's camp. And he named the place Mahanaim, campground. Then Jacob sent messengers on ahead to his brother Esau in the land of Seir in Edom. He instructed them, tell my master Esau this, a message from your servant Jacob, I've been staying with Laban and couldn't get away until now. I've acquired cattle and donkeys and sheep, also men and women servants. I'm telling you all this, my master, hoping for your approval. The messengers came back to Jacob and said, we talked to your brother Esau and he's on his way to meet you. But he has 400 men with him. Jacob was scared. Very scared. Panicked, he divided his people, sheep, cattle, and camels into 2 camps. He thought, if Esau comes on the first camp and attacks it, the other camp has a chance to get away. And then Jacob prayed, God of my father Abraham, God of my father Isaac, God who told me, go back to your parents' homeland and I'll treat you well. I don't deserve all the love and loyalty you've shown me. When I left here and crossed the Jordan I only had the clothes on my back, and now look at me, 2 camps. Save me, please, from the violence of my brother, my angry brother. I'm afraid he'll come and attack us all, me, the mothers and the children. You yourself said, I will treat you well, I'll make your descendants like the sands of the sea, far too many to count. He slept the night there. Then he prepared a present for his brother Esau from his possessions, 200 female goats, 20 male goats, 200 ewes and 20 rams, 30 camels with their nursing young, 40 cows and 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys and 10 male donkeys. He put a servant in charge of each herd and said, go ahead of me and keep a healthy space between each herd. Then he instructed the first one out, when my brother Esau comes close and asks, who is your master? Where are you going? Who owns these? Answer him like this, your servant Jacob. They are a gift to my master Esau. He's on his way. He gave the same instructions to the second servant and to the third, to each in turn as they set out with their herds, say your servant Jacob is on his way behind us. He thought, I will soften him up with the succession of gifts. Then when he sees me face to face, maybe he'll be glad to welcome me. So his gifts went before him while he settled down for the night in the camp. But during the night he got up and took his 2 wives, his 2 maidservants, and his 11 children and crossed the ford of the Jabbok. He got them safely across the brook along with all his possessions. But Jacob stayed behind by himself, and a man wrestled with him until daybreak. When the man saw that he couldn't get the best of Jacob as they wrestled, he deliberately threw Jacob's hip out of joint. The man said, let me go, it's daybreak. Jacob said, I'm not letting you go till you bless me. The man said, What's your name? He answered, Jacob. The man said, But no longer. Your name is no longer Jacob. From now on it's Israel, God wrestler, you've wrestled with God and you've come through. Jacob asked, And what's your name? The man said, Why do you want to know my name? And then, right then and there, he blessed him. Jacob named the place Peniel, God's face, because, he said, I saw God face to face and lived to tell the story. The sun came up as he left Peniel, limping because of his hip. This is why Israelites to this day don't eat the hip muscle, because Jacob's hip was thrown out of joint.